Welcome to another episode of Expected Buffalo, the offering, the second live one in a row. How about that? We're having some fun with the live here. It's a Friday evening. I'm in my festive mood. I got my new era festive hat on. I got my festive drink here in my holiday cup. A little Bailey's and cinnamon and peppermint and a little shot of Tito's in there. We're having a good time. We're having fun on a Friday night. So when we're having fun on a Friday night, what else do you do besides talk about the hockey team that takes the fun out of everything, right? That's the most common thing you would do. No, but I felt inclined, necessary to talk about what happened today with the press conference from or media availability from Kevyn Adams. Let's say this. It was a lot of what we expected, or what you should have expected. At least it's a lot about what I expected. There were some comments. There were some quotes that'll live on forever. Everybody in Buffalo is going to buy palm trees now, thanks to Kevyn Adams. But I think there's a bigger story here that I don't think is giving a lot of run for whatever reason it may be. And to be clear off the bat, before I get into all of this, talk about a few things. If you're expecting a be mad at the Sabres kind of thing here, you're not going to get that. There's plenty of other places to find that, though. Good news for you, but not going to be here, and that's not really what I'm going to get into. I think most of the time that's a waste. We all know that they're annoying and whatever. We don't need to spend our time on that much, except earlier in the week when time did that call for it. But here, I kind of want to talk about what happened, what was said, what that means, and then what that means moving forward, because really that's kind of what matters. So before I get into it again, I feel like I'm like pleading to the jury here. Let me put a few things out there to be very clear, so everybody understands my stance and where I am before I start talking about different things, because I think if I don't say it's going to come off a different way than I really want it to. So, first things first. As I said earlier in the week in the last live podcast that I did, that I feel like there's some sort of big change that needs to be made. I wrote about that, said that. If that includes a general manager, fine. I don't want what I'm going to say here the rest of this to come off, in a sense, that I'm defending Kevyn Adams, if you will. Don't get me wrong, there's some things I think he's done well with the team. There's some good moves, trades that I think he has made. But there's always that not finishing, not getting over the finish line. This team hasn't made the playoffs under him. Not good enough. So it's not good enough. And that's that. So I want that part to be clear up front, that he has work to do and his job should be on the line. Probably isn't, by the way, but it should be. Or they should try to find somebody else within the organization that could do it and get him out of that role and move him up, do whatever you got to do. Fine, great, grand. But yeah, that's where I stand. But having said all of that, there's a bigger issue here. And that's kind of where I want to get to next. So what we'll get to first is the quote of the day that I think is being overplayed a little bit, and I think is being taken in a way that's just being done for negativity when we all really know what he meant. And that's the palm trees and taxes thing. So let's be real with each other for a second. I live in Buffalo. I love living here. I've lived here my entire life. I really have no desire to live anywhere else. That's me. That's probably a lot of people listening to this. Probably a lot of people who are Sabres fans, who are Bills fans, and so forth and whatnot. But also, let's be real with ourselves. The city of Buffalo is not a top destination for players in any sport to go to. Now, the Buffalo Bills, thankfully, because that's been a lot of connections today, have fixed that issue by getting themselves a unicorn quarterback, top 2 in the league, the Super Bowl team every year, and then now a bunch of people want to come play for your team. Great. That's what the Sabres probably need to do. They missed that opportunity. They did Eichel and Reinhardt and all of that. They had their chances to get their guy. They didn't. So they are where they are now, trying to build out a core. So so what he said, while he delivered it incorrectly, going to the palm trees and everything else, it's a true statement, especially when you're not winning. When you're not winning and you're not a destination you want to go to, it doesn't work. And yeah, you could throw out the examples of what about Edmonton and what about this place and that place and that place. Most of those instances, they have a great player. Edmonton has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Of course, people are going to want to go there and play. The same thing with the Bills. They have that star player. The Sabres don't have that. Think about yourself. I mean, put yourself in a player's position. Would you agree with what you know? And imagine agents probably know more. With what you know, would you want to sign up to come play for a Terry Pegula team? 13 years of no playoffs. All the stuff that we kind of just ourselves hear about. No, probably not. You'd probably go somewhere else if everything else is equal. The money was the same, all of that, nicer location, you'd probably pick that place. And then the taxes part of it, I mean, the taxes in the NHL has been a huge thing for a couple of years now. I don't know that I buy into that it's a big deal. Not even what Adam said today, that it's such a big deal that it's being made out to be. I think that's kind of just being used as an excuse to throw in the mixer, which we're going to get to that in a second. But still, it's a thing. New York State has taxes. They have high taxes. Players don't like that. NFL players have talked about they don't like that. That's some of the reasons players leave here is, they come here, for their year or two, and then they leave and go make their money elsewhere with, better tax brackets and no taxes and all that. It's a thing. It's a financial thing that we're not going to overlook. We're not going to play off like, no, that's stupid. It's a real thing. And it has been a conversation just league-wide for a couple years now. So, to say all of that, and then, of course, you have the no move clauses that have to, not half, but a lot of the league has when you're trying to acquire these players. You haven't won, not the premier destination, the taxes, blah, 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 it goes on and on and on. Those are all legitimate things. Now, does that by any means excuse not being able to put a playoff team in the ice? Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. But the name of this podcast, Losing the Forest Through the Trees, the bigger thing here that I think is not talked about that I want to get into before I get into some other stuff he said is it has been hinted. I don't say hinted. Maybe hinted is the right word. I don't know how many times you can listen to Kevyn Adams say to you when he was asked about the salary cap and spending. It's not a thing, but we have full support, but I don't look at the salary cap. It's all obvious signs. The spending ability isn't there. He cannot spend like other teams do. The evidence is there, and it mounts and mounts and mounts every time he is talked and asked about it. It's like he has a new excuse. And the reason he keeps throwing these excuses out there is because he can't say the truth. He can't. The reason he is in this job primarily first, and one of the things why Terry Pegula keeps him in this job, and one of the reasons that he will stay in this job, is because he deflects for the owner. He goes out there and takes the bullets. He goes out there and deals with the media, defends the owner. He's very, up on the team, talk to him every single day, very supportive, anything it takes, and this and that and this and that. But yet, the same things keep happening. The spending is down. The spending continually is at the bottom of the league. And I understand, the entry-level contracts and all that. We talked a lot about this last time. But here we are again. In a must-win season, you have $8 million in cap space sitting there. And from the way he talked today, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of intention to use it. I'm sure he would love to, but he's just not able to. And that, in turn, makes it more difficult to do his job, which is already in a difficult situation. He's essentially playing with a 1.5 hands tied behind his back. Now, that's the job. That is the job of being general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. It's not fair. It stinks. It's tough, but that is the role of this job, and to succeed in that role. And ultimately, if you are unable to do so, then probably somebody else should have a shot at it. And that gets back to what I said in the beginning. If he can't do it, then somebody else should do it. But I think really the main takeaway of today should be not palm trees, the taxes, the believe in this team, all of that stuff. It should be again another time that it is becoming obvious that they are not playing on a level playing field with other teams. And that is when decisions have to be made, and that's when it's more difficult. Realistically, paying Matthias Samuelsson $4 million on a real team that spends to the cap isn't a big deal. You could deal with that. But when you can only spend 90% of your salary cap, then that $4 million makes a difference. That is one example of what he's dealing with. There is no room really for error. You have to just thread that just perfectly on players you draft, players you bring in, because you can't afford to miss because you don't have the ability to set up backup plans because you cannot spend. You cannot spend that extra money to make your roster a little bit better. You have to hit it on point. Again, not fair, but that's how it is, and he has to find a way to succeed within that. I don't envy him. It's difficult, but you gotta come through, or it's gonna need to be somebody else's chance. And it's not to say that he hasn't tried. I mean, he has, but that only goes so far. I mean, he talked about the trade today that he said he would have got roasted for making all of those moves and for making that trade. And a lot of people thought it was Marty Necas, and it could be. I think it was Nikolai Ehlers because they jumped through hoops to try to make that happen with Winnipeg, and it just didn't work out. And plus, he probably would have got killed for how much he gave up because there was no guarantee of another contract beyond the season. They were willing to take that chance. Just didn't happen. Winnipeg did Winnipeg things. He really wasn't available. They asked for crazy stuff that was not realistic, that nobody was going to pay for, and that's why he's still there. And again, Necas can be a similar thing, but I think that was more on the line of that didn't go that far for various reasons, whether it was the ask or whether Necas indicated early on that he wasn't doing that because they pivoted to something else on that roster that eventually didn't get done. But I don't. That's why I think it was more either than Necas, but it could have been either one. It doesn't really matter. It's the whole thing there. There was. We know he's been in on things. He's tried to say things. He said he's tried to get free agents here, and I believe him. And they chose other destinations and said no. Those are all real things. So understanding that he is trying, but that only goes so far. You can't say you're trying for 3 years. You have to eventually get that thing over the finish line. He has been active. He has made a lot of moves. I know a lot of people say he doesn't make moves. He does. They're one of the most active teams in the offseason. I know, fourth liners, but McLeod and some other stuff. But moves are moves. He overturned a lot. He left some things on the table, and that's why his team is where they are. But we touched on why that might be the case just a few minutes ago. So, all of that said, we really kind of put ourselves in a spot now of, okay, we're, 72 hours, 48 hours removed from Tuesday, that mess. Another loss where they played well against Winnipeg, but that's 5 in a row now. Utah's in your building tomorrow. Now what? Where are we now? Well, we're in kind of the same spot that we were in before the roof blew off a couple days ago. You have a team with some inconsistent core players. You have a team with some players that are underperforming. Jack Quinn being one who's put in the press box, and I would say probably isn't going to get back in tomorrow against Utah, but we'll see. But I wouldn't anticipate that. And you have a general manager who's still out there trying to improve this team. Will it get done? When it get done? When will it get done, that move? Who's to say? Could be tomorrow, could be in 3 months. Trouba was an idea that was kicked around today, but he's off to Anaheim. He chose the palm trees of Anaheim over Columbus or Buffalo or any of those North American cities. So yeah, it's. I think that's what makes it difficult being a fan and increases the frustration is you still don't have answers to a degree. I think if you really really focused on some of the things he said. You got some answers on certain things, but you didn't get answers on, a plan moving forward. It's a lot of the same stuff. We're going to believe in our group, and that's kind of killed you at times, but that's what they're still going to do, partly because they maybe have to. Uh, and we're going to try to add when we can. Um, Lindy is doing what he's doing. There are some positive things. Sure, that's all true and accurate, but it doesn't really give you hope that there's some sort of push or change coming here. What I can tell you is, from my perspective, I think the encouraging thing is how they played against Winnipeg. Teams of the past, you could say, would take 2 or 3 games to get over that Colorado loss. It would look messy for a couple games. They didn't do that. They came out, they played well, they deserved a better fate, but didn't get it. That's the way it goes sometimes. And if you win Tuesday, losing yesterday in overtime isn't a big deal. You take 3 out of 4 from Colorado and Winnipeg, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And we don't have to hear about Kevyn Adams and palm trees. But like the general manager, when the team just can't get things over the finish line, this is where we're going to sit now. The good news out of all of it is they're still there. They're still in it. There's an opportunity to fix it, get it corrected. And I think that is why, as we cross every day off the calendar and there's not that thing to help and improve this team right now, that is what's going to make it more frustrating and more difficult to deal with, because really it's so open. It is right there. It's right there. The conference is not that good this season. A lot of teams are bunched together. Even the division itself, isn't great. You kind of unfortunately let Tampa Bay and Boston get their footing here, so now maybe they're trying to distance themselves from you. But both wildcard spots are right there. The Rangers are making moves as they're coming down the standings, trying to get themselves corrected. So even that team, you can argue, is the best team in this wild card mix. Isn't that great. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's really much else to say beyond that. It's for me. To wrap it up, I think it's the most deflating thing out of all of this, and I think is what should be the most deflating to fans. It should be most deflating to even the players. Is just knowing, while not said, that all of the means to winning success are not available to them. And that's tough. That is tough. When you have missed the playoffs for 13 years and you have a team that just won't, organization, owner, whatever, however you want to put it, that won't give everything to break that, it's tough, man. It can suck the life out of you. And I get it. I don't blame fans for being mad. I don't blame fans for turning on Kevyn Adams, because he's the face of it. He's the one you see. He's the one who in there taking the bullet. So of course he's gonna take it. And honestly, maybe that there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the job. He has to deal with that. So we'll see where things go over the next few games here. There's a couple more games left in this homestand. You really got to find your footing here and start to kind of work through this. Maybe this is an instance where it kind of brings the team together as a rallying cry, as we were the guys that want to be here and whatever. You never know. Hockey's a crazy sport. Maybe that's what it takes. But we'll have to deal with the inconsistencies along the way, because that's also the kind of team they are. That's the team that's put together, and that's the spot they're in. So we'll have to manage those. As I try to tell people, manage the ride, manage the roller coaster. We are in a marathon here. It seems like they have played 65 games. It's only 26 games. Now, having said that, the games will start to pile up here before you know it. We will be at like 45 games. It happens fast. So appreciate you listening. Just wanted to jump on, throw a few comments out there. In a sense, maybe zig when there's some zagging out there. I mean, not to a crazy degree, but I just more wanted to put out like that. We should look past the comments and kind of focus on the real thing. That's my big thing. Like that I really try to focus on is what is the primary issue. And the primary issue is all the way at the top. And that's something that isn't going to change unless he decides. You can change the general manager, you can change the players, everything else can change except that one thing. So really, you got to sit here and you got to hope that they find their way to a playoff spot, which isn't impossible, by any means. Find your way to a playoff spot, generate some of that revenue. So then your owner will get back to allowing you maybe to spend like the other teams do, or maybe at least a little bit more. And then you can go on from there. You got to get the monkey off your back. And I think we all need to get that monkey off our back. So hopefully things turn around, and they do. I said earlier in the week, I'm by no means going to sell people that is going to happen. They got to prove it to me. I'm not buying the 4 or 5 game stretches anymore. I need 20, 30 games of good hockey, and they can't even give you 5. So I'm not going to believe that this core group can until they do it and put it together. Put your money where your mouth is situation. All right, well, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my holiday drink here. It's kind of melting, so I want to finish that before it's gone. Everyone else, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Amerks are on right now, so I'm going to go flip that game on. Hopefully a better weekend ahead, not only for the hockey team, but the football team as well. Let's get a couple wins. Make everybody feel a bit better as we head into the holiday season of supposed happiness, right? Happiness and joy. So we'll talk soon, probably again, Sunday or Monday, depending on how these things go. Thanks for listening and enjoy. See ya.